With me now from Ryan, Connecticut is Bud Wilkinson, who's really the premier expert across our state of covering classic cars. I enjoy your channel, I enjoy your articles.
Thank you. I wouldn't say I'm an expert, I'm just an enthusiast.
Well, you're an enthusiast, as I am too, and I've owned a few classic cars in my lifetime, but you seem to find these things. How does it work? Because sometimes I will go up to someone in a parking lot and I saw a 59 DeSoto once at the CVS in Canton. I started talking to them about it.
Have you ever gotten behind somebody and followed them for like 10 miles until they pulled over just to see a car?
I haven't done that, but you probably have.
I've done that. But the thing is, you go to car shows, you get tips from people, and it's amazing. Car enthusiasts are just that. They're so proud of what they have. You wake up in the morning, you're in a bad mood, it's a cloudy day, you feel like, I don't want to go out and do another story today, and every reporter feels that no matter what you're covering. You get to the person's house, they start showing you their car, they start talking about it, they tell the story behind it. There isn't a story I do that I don't leave in a fantastic mood with a smile on my face.
What do you, in your opinion, what was the best period for car manufacturing? When the best, most colorful, most exciting designs came out?
Isn't it always the period that you grew up in when you were a teenager?
Yeah, a little bit.
I mean, I was a teenager in the 1960s, so I think of Chevelles, I think of Camaros, and Firebirds, and GTOs, Chargers. That's the era that I think of. But you talk to older people, older than I am, and they think 50s or 40s. And then younger people, they think, look at the culture today. It's surprising. Everybody thinks that cars in general are an old man's hobby. But you look at the enthusiasts today, so many kids are getting into old cars, but you also have so many kids that are into tuners and the hopped up cars with the exhausts and whatnot. So there's a culture now that exists around cars too. It's just a different type of car.
You've done a lot of videos over the years. Do you have a favorite car that you found that you've profiled on video?
That's a tough one because you kind of like the one you did last. I did a story last week on a gentleman who bought a 1958 Ferret Mk2.
Oh, wow.
Which is a British armored scout vehicle that was built, has a Daimler engine, was built for the British Army between, I think, 1952 and 1970. So that was the one last week. What I remember most, though, Dennis, are the stories that have mistakes, shall we say, have the errors. And as a reporter, you don't want to make a mistake. That's the worst thing that can happen to you. But you're only as good as your source, right? I had one story where I did a story. It was my dentist, as a matter of fact, and he has I want to say a mid-60s Chevy Nova. And I'm running around, I'm taking pictures, I'm not paying attention, I'm interviewing him. I do the story, and in the story, I may get it backwards, but he says it has a 6-cylinder engine. Story appears in the newspaper. Next thing you know, I'm getting emails saying, that's not a 6, that's an 8.
Oh, wow. Someone always knows, right?
Somebody always knows, and I'm looking through it, and it's like, how did that happen? But the biggest mess, and I'll be quick about it, was I did a story on a guy from Torrington who had what year was it? Let me just look here, a 1958 Mercury Monterey. That's what he told me. 3 months later, somebody contacts me, had seen the video, and they said, that's not a Monterey, that's a Mercury Medalist. I'd never heard of a Medalist. Well, in that year, they had different trim levels, like many brands did, and they had the Medalist as the entry level, the Monterey as the mid-level, and I think the Montclair as the upper-level car. He had a Medalist. He didn't even know it. I didn't know it because it was such a short-lived model. I think it lasted 1 year, and they didn't sell very many of them. So he actually had a rarer car than he thought he had.
I love the stories behind the cars that you find, too, because, there was a guy, I think he had a 1960 Buick station wagon that was beautiful, and you were driving around with him in that, and just, those are kind of rare. And these finned beauties that you happen to find, and some people, they don't take them out that often.
No, that Buick Invicta you talked about, it was electric blue, it was absolutely beautiful. Yeah. And this is a little behind the scenes story. He was a guy from Harlingen who I saw his car one day and I said, I've got to do a story on it. Well, we're riding around and we're doing the video. And after I do the interviews and take all the pictures, we normally go out and I try and get, clips of the vehicle in action. Well, we're driving down the road and all of a sudden he pulls over and he gets out, comes over to me and says, you realize the back tire on your pickup is wobbling. And I went, what? We went over, the lugs had come loose, and my back tire was wobbling. So if he hadn't have been observant, there would have been a big mishap during doing that story.
And you got a good story out of his car as well. Let's talk about, is anything being made today? Because people think today's cars are bland, right? There's like 6 shades of gray and silver. You know, there's no bright colors anymore.
White, silver, and black.
Yeah, and the interiors are all kind of blah out there, and the styles all kind of look a lot alike from the different automakers. Is there a classic right now that's being built, a future classic, in your opinion?
I don't know. You're asking the wrong person, because I drive a Miata. I bought
That's a classic, right?
I bought a Miata when it came out in the 90s. I kept it for a few years. I traded it, moved on, and then one came available a few years ago, and I bought it. I think that's a car that, you know, evokes the days of the Triumphs and the MGs.
Sure.
I mean, it doesn't fit exactly it doesn't really answer the question you're asking, but I think that's a car that stands out and will be around.
Well, back in the day, too, they changed the front or the end of a car every year, so each model was probably worth more, whereas today they keep them for 5, 6, 7, 8 years sometimes.
No, but you walk into the parking lot at the grocery store, and you look at the profiles, and you can't tell an Audi from a Hyundai, from a Kia. They all look the same. To me, that's boring.
It is kind of boring. Yeah, no, I agree with you. If someone wants to get involved in the collector car business, is there something out there that's a great deal, you think? Like a great year, like a sleeper?
Boy,
you know, like for instance, like a Chrysler Imperial convertible is going to go for over 100,000,
yeah.
Right? But you might be able to get maybe like a Ford Falcon or something, or something.
If you look, you can find it. The cars are still out there, and that's what surprises me, I think, a lot, is the fact that, you know, we think that all the barn finds have been found. That isn't true. There are still cars out there hiding. There's still stuff along the side of the road.
That's my favorite website, Barn Finds. I read it like 3 times a day to see their various postings. Tell me tell our viewers where they can see your great.
Well, you can see what I write on CT Insider, which is Hearst Newspaper's YouTube channel. Go to YouTube and just put in CT Insider, or at Ride Connecticut, which is a website, and it's also a YouTube channel under Ride Connecticut, both places.
Bud Wilkinson, always a pleasure.
Thanks, Dennis.
Talk cars. We could go all day. We enjoyed that. By the way, check out my article in Seasons Magazine's The Summer Edition. I wrote a big article about convertibles, including some pictures of some classic cars that I've owned over the years. When pool season collides with bear season, that story's next.